Well, I'd like to thank you. It's an enormous pleasure to be here on the occasion of the 40th anniversary of the CCBC. I'd like to start by recognizing State Councillor Wang for his very, very kind hospitality over the last couple of days, and for that hospitality that was extended by all of his colleagues. We've just come from a set of meetings, what we call the Economic and Financial Strategic Dialogue, in which we've made some real progress in our discussions between Canada and China. It's, for me, hard to be up here on stage to talk about the importance of the Canada-Chinese relationship when I have a room filled with people who've, in many cases, spent their life trying to do exactly what we've been trying to do over the last couple of days. So I'm coming more laterally to this passion in life, but I can tell you that I have some important people to follow. I'd like to start just by recognizing our former Prime Minister, Jean Chrétien, who today informed me how many times he informed me today how many times he's been to China over the years, and I think given that he's trying to keep his age a secret, I won't tell you how many years in a row that he's been here in China. Needless to say, it's those sorts of long-term relationships that make such an enormous difference in all of our efforts to improve our trading relationship together to make a real difference for people both in China and, of course, in Canada. I'm coming here today with some what I would call very, very good tailwinds. Last month in Canada, we had the single largest private sector investment in our country, and that was an investment into LNG Canada. So that was important, but it also demonstrated the importance of our relationship with China, because PetroChina was a 15% investor in that investment, that $40 billion investment into the Canadian economy, the start of what I think will be a continuing set of investments in a sector that can make an enormous difference. That particular investment, of course, will have a really positive impact on Canada. It will produce good, well-paying jobs. At the same time, though, it will produce the opportunity for a clean source of stable energy supply for the Chinese market, and we know how critically important that is here as it is around the world. We're here this week. We're here en masse. Premiers from Canada, my colleagues from our cabinet, many other people who've come from Canada. But we're here in a time where there are some challenges in global trade. We're coming on the heels of a renegotiated agreement with the United States and Mexico. We know that that is something that was presented to us. There were not many serious commentators around the world who didn't think that our previous agreement, NAFTA, was working. We saw, though, the opportunity to come to a renewed agreement with the United States. We felt that we got to an agreement that recognized some issues that they put on the table in a constructive way that created for us stability in our economy and the opportunity for Canadians, Americans, and Mexicans to continue to invest in a way that was going to be positive and will be positive for our economies and for our people. We hope that we come with an example of the opportunity to work together to get to compromises that can be important. We know that every trade negotiation, every circumstance is unique, but we also know that getting to a win-win opportunity between countries is one that allows us to continue to advance the cause of a rules-based international trading system, one that, of course, has made such an important impact on livelihoods of people in Canada, in China, and around the world. We talked in our Economic and Financial Strategic Dialogue about many things. I'll get to a couple of them in a couple of minutes. One of the things we talked about is how we can work together internationally. We talked about things like debt transparency. China's working as a participating country in the Paris Club, and we talked about how we can continue to advance the cause of working together in organizations like that. We started, however, our discussions with a really important foundation. It's always important to think about where you're starting. Over the last decade, between Canada and China, we've seen enormous growth in our trading relationship, from about $50 billion to currently about $94.5 billion in two-way trade, a relationship that's grown significantly. And it's not only in trade that it's grown. We have a number of Canadian university presidents with us here today who will tell you that over the last decade we've had 90,000 more Chinese students come to Canada, representing now an annual number of about 140,000 Chinese students who come to Canada each year to pursue studies. We have advances in many other areas. Our tourism has seen very, very significant increases from about 6 years ago, under 200,000 a year annual tourists from China, to now over 600,000 tourists from China in 2016, the most recent year we looked at statistics. Our expectation is that by the year 2020, our second largest source country for tourism will be China, helped importantly by 2018, which is the year of tourism for Canada and China. So we're making important strides in many ways. We know that in some sectors we have some important situations today, but opportunities for continued growth. In the energy sector, we have about a $1.3 billion trade that goes back and forth right now. In the agricultural sector, it's over $7 billion. We see in these sectors enormous opportunity. And of course, one of the advantages that we have in our mutual relationship is we have so many people in Canada of Chinese descent. It's worth reminding us that there are about 1.8 million Canadians of Chinese descent, which is around about 5% of our population. The way I like to think about it is at least one out of the table that would be sitting here at our head table if we were in Canada would be a Canadian of Chinese descent. And of course that helps us in our mutual goals towards better opportunities for trade to help both of our countries. We start with a really great foundation as well in terms of our economies. We heard this morning from State Councillor Wong about the state of the Chinese economy. What I can tell those of you from China, and what I believe that the people from Canada would recognize, is that the Canadian economy right now is doing particularly well. We're finding ourselves in a position where our growth rate is strong. In 2017, we had the highest growth rate among G7 countries. We continue to be a top performer among those countries. We've gotten to a stage where we have now among the lowest rates of unemployment we've seen in 40 years in our country, which is bringing with it, in a welcome way, increase in wages among middle-class Canadians, which of course is what we're trying to achieve as a government. For those of you who look carefully at a country's resilience in the face of any potential challenge, Canada is particularly well placed. We have a balance sheet that's the envy of other countries. Among G7 countries, we have the lowest level of debt as a function of our gross national product of any one of those countries, but not just a bit lower, less than half the average of other G7 countries, putting us in a strong position from which we can continue to make investments in our future prosperity. And I will tell you that our government is continued to committing those sorts of investments that will make a difference. We've made commitments to invest in infrastructure, investments that will help investors if they come to Canada, as well as help Canadians. We've made commitments to invest in skills and innovation. We've made investments in science, a foundation for future economic prosperity. So we know we found ourselves in a position where we are in a particularly strong place from which to continue to have a dialogue with our friends and partners from China. And I can tell you, as I mentioned at the beginning of this talk, that that dialogue is going well. We had a warm and friendly meeting today. We had a warm and friendly meeting in which we talked about important long-term goals, the important long-term goal of comprehensive trade between our two countries. We also, though, recognized that much can be done in the short and medium term. We talked about sectoral opportunities. We talked about the agricultural sector, where we have significant opportunities as a secure and stable source of food products and food technology for the Chinese market. We talked about energy, education, and tourism, all places where we think that we can do more and better in the years to come. So what I want to tell you is that those talks, they've been productive, but we recognize that as much as government coming here is important, the real work that has to be done and the real work that has been done over the years has been done by the people in this room and your colleagues who aren't in this room, who are making a real difference to our trading relationship, helping us to create good, well-paying jobs in Canada, and I know that's an objective we share with our Chinese colleagues. What I will tell you is that you've seen from us an important step in what we're trying to achieve for the business community in Canada. We talked today about trade diversification. You're going to hear more in the not-too-distant future, you Canadians, from me in our fall economic statement about other issues. Issues like how we can make sure our regulatory system works for business. Issues like how we can ensure that investment into our country can be done in a way that creates real opportunities for business to be successful. So I want to say thank you again to our hosts for the couple of days that we've been here. Congratulations again to the CCBC on your 40th anniversary. And most importantly, please keep up the fantastic work in creating real opportunity for business and investment in our two countries that can make an important long-term difference. Thank you very much.